Hey, everybody. Wild Doc here. Looking forward to a little bit of a discussion today. We're going to be discussing, yes, we will be discussing issues such as Fauci takes Flintstones vitamins, he admits. I bet he does, because that's what, yeah. Anyways, we're going to be discussing that, really discussing some of the science behind vitamin supplementation, talking about what vitamins you need. And I'm going to be short and simple with it. You need the vitamins that your body needs. All of them. Every one of them. Not just C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You need all of them. I think that's one of the biggest things that I dislike about even the crunchy world. That it's like, take this vitamin, this isolated nutrient, this one, that one, the other one. Did you know if you supplement every single day with vitamin A, you could actually die from vitamin A toxicity? We're going to talk about that. But vitamin A deficiency is actually a factor in infectious diseases such as COVID, such as measles, such as influenza. It's a common vitamin nutrient deficiency in obesity, and things like that. So people need to know that there's a time and place to utilize isolated nutrients. I would agree with that. And there is evidence that they can save the lives of children, especially in third world countries, where vitamin nutrition deficiencies are extremely prevalent. So real quick, before we even go into more detail and information, I want you guys to share this, please, and actually please try and tag a friend or family member. Post this in groups that you're a part of, because again, the massive Facebook censoring. I'm still waiting on Facebook to fact check Fauci and make sure that they say that vitamins and supplements don't help protect you against COVID. Because according to fact checkers before, they would have fact-checked Fauci right now if he was the lay person. But now that since he's the expert, and at the end of the pandemic, he finally comes out and says, hey, guess what I'm doing for my health? I'm taking some vitamins. I think they're good for me. They help support strong immune systems. And yeah, I'm sure most of you would be thinking I probably should have told you this from the get-go, since we wanted you to believe that there is no treatment, nothing you can do, run, hide, and fear. That's what they wanted you to know or think from the beginning. They didn't want you to know about things you could actually do to support your immune system. And that's the way our government works, folks. Other things we'll be talking about briefly is things like the Nashville mayor who worked with the health department. Folks, the health departments are a bunch of liars. I'm going to say that plain and simple, and I'm going to bring you videos from an immunization vaccine summit put on by our health department. My videographer, Anthony, is working on those as we speak. Aren't you, Anthony, right now? Get to it? No. But soon we will get you to where I asked critical questions of our health department director, and she says, I did not know about the Department of Defense studies, or studies including the Department of Defense that showed a coronavirus infections were increased in those who had taken the influenza vaccine. I didn't know about that. I'll look into that. And I asked her about the ones about children having increased viral illnesses if they received the annual influenza vaccine. She couldn't answer that either. She actually tried to avoid the question. It's quite comical if you watch the video when we come out with it in the near future. Yeah, well, the video's not out. So I did the immunization summit, and that's part of the videos that you needed to get from the Mevo that I sat here from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon to watch a ridiculousn's of the brainwashing that goes into training our doctors on the benefits of vaccinations. Yeah, you wait till I get that out there. So, I think we'll mention a little bit about Mark Green and his letter to the Nashville mayor, since the mayor of Nashville and the health department worked together to deceive people. Yes, they did. Evidence is there. They do that all the time. I actually published one of my videos and one of my blog articles where I wrote a bunch of stuff, actually details the Montgomery County Health Department Director, Joey Smith. And yes, I mentioned by name. He's a public director, health director. So he works in the public arena. He deserves to be scrutinized for his actions. He works alongside people like Joe Pitts and Mayor Durrett of Montgomery County, advising them on what to do about this pandemic. But yet Joey Smith told me to my face after I revealed to him, and well, I didn't even have to reveal to him. I actually asked him the question, hey, do you know about the CDC scientist who confessed to committing fraud in regards to the MMR vaccine studies saying that vaccines don't cause autism? Do you know about Dr. William Thompson, who confessed that he and his co-authors at the CDC were committing fraud, concealing data, just like mayor of Nashville and the health department was, to shut everybody down and ruin businesses? But something even more important than that would be children's lives, I think. Children being brain damaged by vaccinations. So after the CDC scientist, Dr. William Thompson and his colleagues found that there's this huge, and I'm quoting him, huge statistically significant increased risk of autism in children who receive the MMR sooner, especially in African-American children. Black American children, boys, were at a huge increased risk of autism the earlier they received the MMR vaccine. And they threw it away in a trash can and tried to destroy it. And that's the confession by a CDC scientist who still works there. And Joey Smith, you know what he said? The Montgomery County Health Director. And I'm never going to let up on this, because I completely disagree with his response. You know what he said to me? In his office, to my face, and I published the emails between me and him. That's why it's not defamation of character when I say he's a liar. He's a deceiver. He's not transparent. He doesn't give people the truth. Why? And how do I have that evidence? Because the emails back and forth to me show that he promised things, he said he'd do things, he didn't do it. And that's what a liar is. When you say you're going to do something, you don't do it, you're a liar if you don't do it. Now, he can make things right and do right and start telling parents about the senior scientist at the CDC who confessed to committing fraud and destroying data, which ultimately destroys human life, by concealing data that showed that the MMR vaccine was statistically associated with an increased risk of autism. You know what Joey Smith said to me? The Montgomery County Health Director says to me, it's above my head. His exact words, above my head. I looked at him and said, I don't believe it's above our heads. It's the right thing to do. It's not above your head to tell people the truth. It should be a legal requirement to always tell people the truth if you hold a public office and position. And if they decide to deceive people and lie to people, then they should be immediately removed from office. The mayor from Nashville should be removed from office. Joey Smith should be removed from his office and his position because he is okay with people being deceived. I didn't think I was going to get this fired up today, but for some reason I am. And all you thought I was going to talk about was vitamins and Flintstones. Woosa. I like that. Thank you, Anthony. But it's just so sad. It's just really, really sad that people think that it's okay because my job, people tell me what to say, what to do. And when they tell me not to tell people the truth, it's above my head to go above their heads and tell people the truth. No, it's not. These are children's lives at stake. You know, Fauci should be held accountable for criminal negligent homicide because he should have been, as an expert, giving people advice to do simple things to support their immune response and reduce their risk of severe infection with coronavirus and other infectious diseases. But he decided not to do that until Jennifer Garner interviews him. And then he's like, yeah, I'll admit I've been doing something that I'm not advising other people do. When you hold that type of position, you have that opportunity. I don't get that opportunity. I get right now about 55 people on Facebook right now watching me. He gets on national television. He gets time set aside on the presidential platform to sit there and say, there's nothing you can do. You must wait on our vaccine. There's nothing you're allowed to do, can do. And if anybody says that you can do anything, then we're going to go after them legally. That's what I was warned about. I was warned about talking about this stuff. I've been called a snake oil salesman for talking about vitamins that now Fauci says are actually beneficial. Again, though, I'm not going to sit here and say everybody should go out and just do all of this. Do D, C, E, F, G. Again, you need what your body needs. You need everything that your body needs for a healthy immune response. You know, if you're deficient in zinc, just because you're supplementing vitamin C, you could throw a distortion off. But like, again, certain vitamins, luckily D and C are extremely hard because people take a lot of those. They're extremely hard to go into a severe imbalance, go into toxicity with either of those vitamins. Luckily for our body, vitamin C, we pretty much just get diarrhea if we take too much vitamin C. It's a vitamin C flush. You've gone to bowel tolerance. And at that point in time, back off on how much C you're taking. Luckily, C really doesn't cause that much of an imbalance in our system. But other vitamins like E and A, they can cause severe imbalances and increase your risk of death. So that's where I tell people, like, I cannot encourage you enough not to simply resort to isolated nutrient vitamins and make sure your nutrition's on point. Now, me and my wife actually yesterday, we did a video on Instagram, and it was comical. I tend to joke around with my wife's on there and try and hit on her, but who wouldn't? Look at my wife. She's gorgeous. All right. So just trying to get me some brownie points. Anthony's over there like, brownie points. But here's the reality. You know, like, if you wanted to supplement with something or consume something rather than, because the idea is supplements are oftentimes isolated nutrients, things like that. You know, give you a example. Our zinc supplement through Wellness Way is actually desiccated oyster, which is the #1 food that you can consume for zinc. So, but also if you were to actually mulch your garden, the amount of zinc and minerals in your fruits and vegetables is exponentially more, 10 to 100 times more if you have a strong mulch layer on your garden. So there you go, folks. If you want to increase your mineral and nutrient levels in the fruits and vegetables that you're growing in your garden, never, never, never allow bare soil, all right? That creates a desert-like effect in your garden, even if it's nice and clean and no weeds. You know what? God made weeds to cover bare soil, all right? You need things decaying for funguses, bacteria, worms, creatures to be able to create much of the things that your plants need to be able to absorb and utilize those nutrients and minerals. So you want that over your garden, all right? Why do we use an oyster? Because it's a whole food source. I don't recommend isolated nutrients very often. There's a time and place, and absolutely, vitamin A supplementation, get this, vitamin A supplementation regularly, daily, did not actually decrease measles mortality rates. But Cochrane reviews have actually shown that if you supplement 1 day or 2 days after infection with measles, you can reduce mortality of 50% reduction in mortality from measles in third world countries. But daily supplementation didn't really do a whole lot of benefit. And again, some of these studies are in countries where deficits aren't that big, aren't that prevalent. So we need to take those things into consideration. So we'll be talking about this a little bit. Here's one thing I found extremely hilarious, because 2 weeks ago I did another video on this article right here of COVID-19, can boosting your immune system protect you? Well, according to this article, BBC, they say that there's little evidence to support vitamin C's mighty reputation. But yet Fauci said there's plenty of evidence to support vitamin C's reputation. Again, I would love to see Facebook fact-check Fauci right now. I would really love it, because Facebook was fact-checking people like myself and others who are saying, do some of the bare minimum things to keep your immune response healthy and strong. And some of those isolated nutrients can help for people who are likely deficient. I'm going to be going through historical references of disease mortality, things like that. Oh, and just going to mention it, folks. We learn yet again, last week I talked more about it. Previous videos, I've been talking a lot about it. is the Washington University research paper in study on severe coronavirus patients who actually had severe coronavirus infections and disease and increased risk of mortality because they were immunosuppressed. Not hyperinflamed, not cytokine storms. Actually, ventilator-associated pneumonia can be a cause of cytokine storm, but that's because of the ventilator and the bacterial infections and things like that. But actually, people who succumb to COVID pneumonia are actually dealing with suppressed immune systems. So what Washington University said is we've been sending the trajectory of these patients in the wrong direction. I said that's a really nice way to say the medical community made a big mistake and they were killing people. I know that's harsh, but I'm tired of them not accepting the fact that they make mistakes and admitting it, because just like COVID death rates dropped as doctors reject ventilators, were ventilators actually harming COVID-19 patients? Yes, the science is now showing that more people survive even when they're in a deficit of oxygen, when low oxygen levels are there. This is why one of the reasons I don't like people trying to say that one of the reasons that we don't want to wear masks, I don't wear masks, I don't advocate masks, but here is something that as I was trying to confirm the idea that masks could cause hypoxia, yes, they can cause hypoxia, low oxygen levels, which can increase risk of health-related problems and severe fatigue, and yes, over the very, very long term could ultimately cause the person to have issues with their immune response. But in the short term and hypoxic states, for the majority of people, hypoxia is not the issue, all right? Guess which immune cells actually function better in hypoxic environments? When your body is lower on oxygen, guess which cells? Did I say it? Which cells? Because I did it the other day. Did I say which cells? I didn't say which cells, did I? In my office the other day, I was trying to give a little quiz and I accidentally gave the answer away. But which cells in your body actually work more effectively and efficiently in an hypoxic environment? Anthony, you're the only one in the... Quick, online here, quickly, everybody. Debbie, Kathy, Christine, who's all out there, please in the comments on Facebook right now. And if you're on YouTube in the future, go ahead and put it in the comments. But I'm watching here on Facebook for a minute or two. What cells in your body actually function more efficiently when your body is hypoxic? And this isn't like me saying, hey, go put a mask on to try and become hypoxic because it does this for your certain cells that work better in hypoxic environments. This is just me saying, holy cow, God, you are intelligent. Anybody else agree with me on that? Give me a little hand and clap there. T cells, yes. So somebody says, Kathy, cancer cells, yes, in a way. But what I was going after there, yes, cancer cells are more anaerobic type cells. So actually cancer cells, you're correct, Kathy, you're very correct. That's kind of like, oh, wow, that's true. But actually the cells that function better are immune cells. Bobby, Joe, you got that correct. Kathy, anaerobic, yes. So you actually have a stronger immune system when you go hypoxic, but you don't want to be hypoxic for long because every single cell, including immune cells, need oxygen to work efficiently. But it's crazy and amazing to me that it's not like blanket every single cell in your body that is dependent on oxygen for energy. Don't just get weaker. That actually the cells of your immune system work more efficiently. So it's like God says, well, you know, when you have that cough and cold and you build up phlegm and mucus in your airways, well, I know you're going to become deficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow your immune cells to work better in that environment for a temporary period of time to go ahead and help you live longer and save your life. I'm going to provide you with what you need. And that's the thing, it's really cool. Vitamins and nutrition is just about glorifying God and saying God provided what we needed. I can show you studies about vitamin A corrects deficits in diet-induced obese mice and reduces influenza infection after vaccination and challenge. Oh, because if you vaccinate them and they're obese, the vaccines don't work, they still have high mortality rates. But if we give them vitamin A, which reduces infectious disease mortality and pneumonia rates by like 50, 60% in just about any and every infection that they study, why not just encourage people not to be deficient in their diet or obese? So things like that, think about. So, all right, let's get get organized, folks. Let's go through something here. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to actually talk about. It's hilarious. He says vitamin C and D. Here, let's read it in the biological textbook. So, writes Essentials of Immunology. This is the 13th edition, the medical textbook. All right, this is the textbook my buddy Patrick was actually going through for his Harvard Medical School immunology course. So Patrick Flynn, CEO, head honcho of the Wellness Way. Check him out for sure. They do lives. Wellness Way, Dr. Patrick won't be on live tomorrow, but they do lives on, I believe it's 8 a.m. Central Standard Time on Saturday mornings. I'm going to try and stay as consistent as possible on Fridays at around noon, okay? But here we go. Dietary effects on immunity. What's funny to me is like when this all started, I was, reading through this entire textbook. I've read immunology textbooks before, stuff like that, but I like to jump around and kind of read and highlight and stuff. So, I hadn't come across anywhere in this textbook yet where it talked about vitamins really. And so I jumped to the back and I was like, okay, let's look in the references. Where is vitamins mentioned? Since vitamins are essential for a healthy immune response, I would think medical physicians would have been educated on all the vitamin and nutrition and supplements and things like that your body would need to be able to mount an immune response. So it said 287, that was it. 1 page, 287. It's actually not even 1 page, it's a half a page. This is how much you get if you go to medical school when you learn about immunology. A half a page in a 550 some page textbook on immunology, you get a half a page on nutrition and vitamins. And you don't even get it on nutrition, you just get it on a few vitamins. But the greatly increased susceptibility of undernourished individuals to infection can be attributed to many other factors: poor sanitation, personal hygiene, overcrowding, inadequate health education, things like that. And that's the thing is right now in America, we don't really educate people on health. Our medical establishment sadly is just, hey, come in, we'll run a lab test, and if you have high cholesterol, we'll put you on something to lower it. If you have high blood sugar, we'll put you on something to lower it. If you have high blood pressure, we'll put you on something to lower it. It's just basically a flow chart with labs, and that's all they do. It's, let's do this for that, tit for tat, and that's all they do. They don't actually educate and inform people on why they got into that critical situation. They don't educate people. I mean, obese people are pushed to get the flu vaccine, but the flu vaccine doesn't work in obese patients. The science shows it, and that's why they're looking at nutrition, vitamins, to try and correct the nutrient deficiencies to make a vaccine, quote, work. But obese patients aren't told that their vitamin nutrition deficiencies can cause that vaccine to be completely, it's always worthless, folks. I understand, but I'm just talking in general terms right now for what the way they discuss. They admit, obese people, the vaccines don't work, all right? They admit it. But instead of telling obese patients before they get a vaccine here throughout the fall, they're not going to be like, hey, make sure that you are not deficient in vitamin A, zinc, D, or any other vitamin and nutrient you need that obesity can cause, or the lifestyle that leads to obesity causes those deficiencies. They're not telling people who are suffering from obesity to take these vitamins or nutrients before they vaccinate them. They're just telling them to get vaccinated because it's the only way to protect you against flu. No, they don't care about that. They want to sell you something and not teach you something. All right. Now, I'm going to touch base right there on what they said. I wish they would actually go through a couple different research articles and journals that I'm going to go through with you here real quick today. All right. So here we go. So just like it says here in the immunology textbook for medical physicians, it says sanitation, hygiene, overcrowding, inadequate health education. It should be inadequate nutritional education would probably be a better terminology for that. They go on to say, in addition to that, there are also gross effects of protein, calorie, malnutrition on immunocompetence. And they go through then to vitamins like B6, B9, C, E. They generally impair the immune system. They go through and they mention zinc. They actually mentioned that iron deficiencies. How many people are iron deficient right now? Ladies, how many of you are iron deficient? A lot of women are iron deficient. And I'm going to give you a free piece of advice here real quick. All right? Increase chlorophyll with consuming things like organ meats. All right? Eat the giblets. Okay? Don't just throw the bright red meats out with the baby water. Eat liver. Liver and chlorophyll. Mix them together. Great for iron absorption. Iron absorption is increased with chlorophyll consumption. So if you're not eating things that are green, you won't absorb iron as efficiently. Use a cast iron skillet. Cook you some slices of grass-fed beef liver or chicken liver, free range, and eat a salad with it at the same time, or take a chlorophyll supplement. All right, if you do that, that was one of the simplest things. We did better with my wife's. My wife had slight iron deficiency. She was like borderline. She wasn't like deficient, but she was borderline. And we actually got better results because she eats deer meat. I can't get her to eat deer liver though, sorry. But the reality is, yeah, my wife won't either, so that's why we supplement with things like that, with organ meats. But chlorophyll, boom. Chlorophyll took care of her iron deficiency better than her increasing deer meat and red meat and things like that. Because again, it's about absorption. It's not about just ingestion. It's about what your body absorbs. So, but also on with Ren, our third pregnancy, even by that point in time, within the last 6 years, our family knowledge has increased as well. So that's one of the best things I believe women could do and should do. I believe Rachel's raising her hand. She probably got iron deficiency, but iron deficiencies can impair oxidative burst of neutrophils. They use oxidation. Your immune cells use oxidation and inflammation to kill infected cells and bacteria and viruses and things like that. So you need iron to be able to, it's kind of like iron loads the gun, so that your immune cells have a loaded gun to be able to use oxidative damage to kill a bacterial cell or resolve an infection. So you need iron as well. So you need to take care of these things. So the deficiencies can be, so if you're iron deficient but you're taking C and D and you don't have a strong and healthy immune response, you wouldn't have that. So you'd still be susceptible. So this idea that Fauci is saying that no other vitamins, nutrients, elderberry, all these things, that there's no real science on those things. No, there's extremely strong science on the antiviral properties of a lot of herbs like elderberry. All right? And actually, there's a lot of antioxidant nutrition and vitamin C and things like that in fruits and vegetables. So he's literally saying, I take something that's found in fruit, but that fruit that's high in vitamin C, yeah, there's not a lot of science to support its effectiveness. So what should we do? Should we make sure that we take an orange and dissolve it down into every little compound that's in it and then just say, I only want the C because that's what Fauci said was good for me? Hey, that rhymed. I only want the C because that's what Fauci said was good for me. But again, back to immunology textbook, sanitation, hygiene, all those things. So let's read from this research journal right here, the Journal of Pediatrics, zinc, diarrhea, and pneumonia. All right. So here we go. Cells with a rapid rate of turnover, mucosal barrier linings, such as your lungs, airways, mucosal barrier, sinuses, your gastrointestinal tract, vaginal tract, urinary tract, all those systems. Guess what? Those cells at rapid rate of turnover, notably those of the immune and gastrointestinal systems, are most vulnerable to deprivations of zinc deficiency. Again, I jump all over the place, but if you look at cardiovascular diseases, things like that, watch this. So if you look here, early reports in China and Italy where the pandemic first took, and again, this is Annals of Internal Medicine, COVID-19, severe obesity, a big, big problem, all right? So in China, Italy, when the coronavirus pandemic, all right, first took hold, All right, they said the broad range of factors such as autoimmune diseases, old age, hypertension, coronary artery disease are some of the worst risk factors. Well, guess what? How do they treat autoimmune conditions? With immunosuppressive drugs. Who are most at risk of coronavirus disease and death, severe disease and death? Autoimmune or immune deficient patients. Autoimmune patients are immune deficient if they're treating it medically. You can also be immune deficient but yet still have an autoimmune condition. Because autoimmunity is not just about too strong of an immune system. HIV patients with AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, can still suffer from autoimmune conditions. That's where it's not as simple as many people try and make it out. Oh, don't give elderberry to an autoimmune patient because elderberry helps increase these cytokines that are inflammatory, which are necessary to fight off an infection. But actually, a lot of autoimmune patients need things that are going to support and feed their immune system so they can clear the viruses that are triggering the cell and tissue damage that is then activating the immune system to cause inflammation and damage those tissues. So you actually need a stronger immune system to clear the triggers oftentimes that are causes and contributing factors to autoimmune disease. So you actually need a stronger immune response. Stronger is a generalized term, but you may need a stronger immune response, but you need a balanced immune response, and that's where things they do go through. Vitamin A and D are great for balancing and modulating the immune response. But from this, animals and internal medicine, all of those risk factors, many times the risk factors for immune problems, yes, you're already in a hyperinflamed state, you already have tissue damage, you have cardiac weakness, but a lot of the medications cause zinc deficiencies. If you look at the deficiencies that hypertension medications and blood pressure medications, cholesterol medications, things like that, they cause deficiencies in the things your body needs to be able to fight an infection off. So, that said, a lot of the problems they're causing, that's the truth. But I wish this Journal of Immunology would have actually said, let's reference the Journal of Pediatrics from 1999, where we are admitting that sanitation and hygiene and overcrowding, those were major issues and contributing factors to severe disease and infectious illness death rates. So they go on to say here, in conclusion, the largest historical decrease in morbidity and mortality caused by infectious disease was experienced not with the modern antibiotic and vaccine era. But yet, throughout this entire immunology textbook, it seems like they want to gloat about vaccines saving the world. But yet, they admit, but don't point them to references and resources in science that would show our medical physicians that the largest decrease in morbidity and mortality from infectious diseases was experienced not by antibiotics and vaccines, but after the introduction of clean water and effective sewer systems. And also throughout here, they also talk about the fact that fermenting your vegetables reduces phytates that would bind to minerals like zinc and cause it to be unable to cross your intestinal lining and get into the bloodstream. So absorption is decreased by phytates that are found in many, many different grains, and fermenting things improves the absorption. So we should teach people about fermentation practices with their food to help reduce zinc and mineral deficiencies. Preferred strategies to reduce phytate content, different things like that. They talk about, thus on a worldwide public health level, it is likely more economically feasible than vaccines directed against specific organisms. So right there, we literally, this one medical journal, if we were to go through it, and they do state, zinc supplements are proven valuable in evaluation of benefits and correction of zinc deficiency. They are also benefited in treating established disease. Breast milk provides quite the modest and progressively decreasing quantities of zinc at times, but with relatively favorable, really good bioavailability. So even though it may be lower in breast milk, the bioavailability is increased because it's whole food source. Zinc supplements enhancing linear growth and velocity and weight gain in growth retarded children. We could reduce malnourished and growth retardation in children. Failure to thrive. Zinc supplements may be effective in some circumstances. Zinc supplements may be ineffective. And this is a big thing I want you guys all to take away. Zinc supplements can be ineffective. Fauci's Flintstone vitamins are always ineffective. But the reality is, when he's saying C and D, those are the ones with science behind them. That's why I take those too. There's tons and tons of science. We could be saving tens of thousands of lives in the elderly, or extending their lives. Let's talk in reality. We're all going to meet our maker someday. We're going to meet the maker. All right? Someday. How could we extend life? How could we prevent severe illnesses and disease and suffering? By not being malnourished in any one of the nutrients your body needs. Go back to that. You cannot cover up bad diet. You cannot with simply taking a vitamin or nutrient in an isolated form. And this is why it says those zinc supplements may be ineffective in some circumstances if other nutrient deficiencies coexist. It is quite remarkable how zinc has proven as a single nutrient supplement. Though, if you're vitamin A deficient, vitamin C, vitamin D, if you're E, B, all of these, iron, all of those could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. We need to teach people about proper nutrition more than anything else, that foundation right there. But again, so they admit it, but they don't teach people that vaccines don't work in malnourished individuals. Why not? And when you're not malnourished, you really don't have a risk of severe infection. It even goes through antibody responses could be intact, but severe lower affinity and ability to work right. And then other immune cells can be deficient because of nutrient deficiencies. So you could have the antibodies in your bloodstream, but have an inability to actually fight off an infection. That's why there's multiple counts of tetanus infection in people who are fully immunized and have 100% of the needed antibody levels. They have the antibody levels, they still get tetanus and die from it. If you want more on tetanus, go look at my videos on thewilddoc.com. I did a pretty dang good one, if I pat myself on the back, going through the CDC statistics and studies on tetanus and showing you that statistically speaking, when you look at the data, there's no reduction severe in death rate in tetanus between a person who is vaccinated and unvaccinated. Zinc deficiency is rather interesting, reducing the, again, reading from the immunology textbook, reducing the activity of the thymus, the thymic hormones, shifting the Th1 and Th2 balance towards Th2 dominated responses, leading to a decline in the activity of phagocytic cells and natural killer cells. Meanwhile, iron deficiencies impair the oxidative burst in neutrophils and macrophages, as well as phosphocytokine or cytochrome NADP oxidase in an iron-containing enzyme. Another side, of course, there is another side to all of this, in that moderate restriction of total calorie intake and or a marked reduction in fat intake, again, unhealthy fats, ameliorates autoimmune disease, at least in animal models. So in animal models, reduced fat intake, guess what? Most animal models, animals aren't supposed to eat a bunch of fat. I'm pretty sure that I've never seen a rat take down a pig or a gazelle or a cattle. I've never seen rats just taking them down. You know, wild animals eat what God meant for them to eat. So when they feed high fats, but the next sentence they say omega-3s, which are a healthy fat. So fat intake can reduce and improve autoimmune diseases, while taking healthy fat can actually improve autoimmune diseases. Yeah, reduce fat to help autoimmune, but then take a fat to reduce autoimmune. That's literally what they say. At least they kind of differentiated, but they didn't really talk about unhealthy fats. But They downregulate pro-inflammatory cytokine levels. They don't downregulate, they don't suppress. Having what your body needs allows your body to do what it needs to do. See, medicine thinks of supplements like this: vitamin A, retinoic acid, vitamin A metabolite, stimulates the development of T regulatory cells or regulatory T cells and Th2 cells, but inhibits the production of Th17 cells. No, in the presence of a vitamin A deficiency, your body is unable to regulate the amount of Th17 immune cells that are produced. It's unable to do what it needs to do to be able to balance out your immune system. They think vitamins are like drugs. Oh, it suppresses that. No, it allows your body to do what its body was designed to do. That's what they do. I'm saying a lot of do's today. Among the cells that produce retinoic acid are dendritic cells in the gut, vitamin D. That's why you need a healthy gut, not inflamed gut. That's why fixing the gut, testing your digestive system, and fixing your gut has a massive beneficial effect on autoimmune conditions. Why? Because your cells of your gut can produce retinoic acid. Cells that produce retinoic acid are dendritic cells in the gut, and if your gut is inflamed, due to imbalances in the microbiology of your digestive tract from parasitic infections, from ingestion of toxins and Roundup, glyphosate, chemicals we spray, or herbicides we spray on our fruits and vegetables in America, consuming antibiotics. There's a lot of things that have a negative effect on your dendritic cells. So why don't we get rid of those things, allow those dendritic cells to function more efficiently and produce more of that retinoic acid necessary to be able to regulate the immune response systemically in a patient with autoimmune disease, rather than giving them an immunosuppressive drug which increases the risk of dying from infectious diseases, like the medical model does. I'm just saying, I just like to point out the fact that it makes a lot more sense to take a wellness way path towards health and recovery. We're not treating disease, we're pointing you in the direction of health. That's what our wellness way docs do. So, vitamin D is a regulator. I love the fact that they said a regulator. The vitamin is a potent inhibitor of T cell proliferation, Th1 cytokine production. It generates a neat feedback loop. This is so neat. It's neat what the body does. I just love how they talk. Feedback loop at sites of inflammation where macrophages are activated by IFN theta, producing vitamin D, which suppresses the T cells, making the interferon. Vitamin D downregulates antigen presentation by macrophages and promotes multinucleated giant cell formation in chronic granulomatous lesions. Don't worry about it. Just like have fun studying it. Vitamin A and vitamin D promotes Th2 activity, especially at mucosal surfaces, stimulates T regulatory activity, and downregulates differentiation of T17 cells. Quite a busy little vitamin. It's so busy, it does this. No, our body does it when it has vitamin D. D doesn't do that. D is just there, and when it's there, your body can do what it's supposed to do. I'm going to say that a lot. Now watch this. So in this study right here, 2020, all right? The year many wish to forget already. Vitamin A corrects, and if you want to forget it, just start upping your cholesterol medications right now, and you will succumb to dementia and immune deficiency, and you'll forget 2020. So if you want the medical route to forgetting about 2020, go ahead and start taking more cholesterol meds. If you all know what cholesterol meds do, you'll understand the joke. If you don't, I'll explain later. Vitamin A corrects tissue deficient deficits in diet-induced obese mice and reduces influenza infection after vaccination and challenge. They've demonstrated that obese mice fail to properly store vitamin A, resulting in tissue deficiencies despite elevated levels of vitamins in the blood. A lot of people ask why we don't test deficiencies. And while I have patients that come in and wanting my help, have gone to functional med docs and things like that, naturopaths, and they get these deficiencies, there's a time and place. There is a time and place where you can use a nutrient deficiency panel to say, look, you're likely deficient, you need to change your ways. That can help people. But I rarely, and I actually encourage people not to waste their money. And it's not always a waste. There is a time and place in some individuals to do those types of panels. But the reality is this. Listen to me here. Deficiencies despite elevated levels of vitamins in the blood. If you do a blood test on vitamins, you may have a false positive in terms of, oh, it looks good. It looks positive. It looks like I have plenty of vitamin A. But it's deficient in your tissues because the status of your health. Oh, you're not deficient in your blood, but you're deficient in your tissues, and they didn't take a biopsy of your liver, of your lungs. So you might be deficient in your lungs of vitamin A because of obesity, but in your blood, it looks like you're not deficient. You have to take care of underlying causative factors, all right? But luckily, even though the blood could say you have plenty, they do find that supplementation can, and again, eat more carrots. And yes, there would be a time and place. I could say it would be a pretty dang good idea if somebody got it and they're obese to take an isolated nutrient like C, D, A, zinc, things like that, to make sure you cover those potential severe deficiencies, tissue deficits, so that they can get what they need or they have readily accessible more of what they would need to mount an immune response and save their life, okay? But it is likely that these deficiencies are also present in humans as non-alcoholic fatty acid disease, which alters vitamin A storage and metabolism, is common in individuals with obesity. So there, folks, fatty acid diseases, non-alcoholic obesity, fatty liver disease, things like that. Guess what? Can alter your storage. You can have plenty in the blood, not enough in storage, so when you have to mount an immune response, even though it looks good in the blood upon a blood test. Again, this is why Wellness Way does not do hardly any ever nutrient deficiency panels, blood tests, because it doesn't give us what we really would want to know and need to know to make a strong clinical judgment on what the person needs to be doing. Really, we can typically take care of their deficiencies by changing their nutrition and healing their gut, getting rid of inflammatory triggers in their diet, whether nutrition that would look good and be good for the average person, but yet if the person's allergic to that food, it can be harmful, cause more gut inflammation, inability to absorb, ultimately further deficiency because they're eating something that is healthy. Metabolism as well. So you need to metabolize, you need to be able to use in chemical responses. Biochemistry within your body is deficient or is dependent on the status of your health and the way your body's functioning, not just are the vitamins there. So they go on throughout this, and again, this is the research paper. Let me X out of that. The research paper up here behind me and on the screen. Anthony will put it up briefly. Vitamin A, a tissue deficit, may be common in individuals with obesity, but are masked and underreported because of normal or above normal serum retinol levels. They show, or we show, they say, the researchers show that vitamin A supplements provide benefit to individuals with obesity by correcting tissue vitamin deficits, altering lung immune cell composition, improving vaccine responses because obesity causes people not to respond to vaccines. So but they keep selling vaccines to obese patients and not telling them that the vaccines are worthless. They're always worthless, okay? I'm just going to clarify, but talking in their terminology. But you see, they're about profits. They're not about education and information that would actually empower people to know, hey, I'm not deficient and I've taken care of my obesity problem, and because I'm eating healthy, I'm no longer diseased and ill, then I don't need the vaccine that they say I need that doesn't work. That increases my children's risk of coronavirus. Check me on that, please. I'd love you. Multiple studies, CDC funded, 2018. I went through that prior videos. Assisting in respiratory virus clearance. These findings are particularly relevant as the world scrambles to deal with severe acute respiratory syndrome SARS coronavirus 2 pandemic. Individuals with underlying health conditions, including obesity, are particularly vulnerable to serious disease, COVID-19, caused by SARS coronavirus 2. Our demonstration that vitamin A supplements provide protection against respiratory virus infection may inform healthcare recommendations for prophylaxis against severe disease from respiratory viral infections in individuals with obesity. And again, so we have the science available to say we need to stop the obesity epidemic, but let's look at what has been occurring because of Dr. Fauci, the CDC, and the medical establishment, and our mayors and different people. So, weight gain is a flip side of COVID food crisis for richer nations. Folks, if you go through this woman, the story of this woman, because of lockdowns, because of what our mayors said we needed to do, because of the shutdowns, all right, maybe the bars in Nashville shutting down could have, in essence, helped the obesity epidemic, but shutdowns and food deprivation and budget cuts for families that can't afford healthy nutrition, can't afford fruits and vegetables as well as they can ramen noodle, mass boxes of chips and ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese. Our government subsidizes that food oftentimes better than they subsidize healthy nutrition. And because of budget cuts in families, it has led to severe increases in obesity. This woman gained 30 pounds. I got an email from another doctor, from a friend of mine. She says, hey, hope you're doing great this weekend. I have a good friend of mine, has been having a lot of fatigue, but trouble sleeping and works out consistently, but is having trouble losing weight, and she gained during quarantine. Any recommendations of what she should do? Should she do some stool analysis with you or other things? So I sent her back. We need to look at, again, we need to look at inflammation. We need to look at her diet. If she's exercising, I know this Dr. Christina is an amazing, amazing chiropractor in Nashville. All right. And I know she'd be helping her with nutrition, so she's getting the foundational things down. So I recommended it's too vague to make a decision. We could be looking at hormonal problems right now and stress factors that are causing her to gain that weight and not be able to lose the weight despite exercise and probably good nutrition, because I know Christina would be leading this girl in the right direction with her nutrition. We could be looking at food allergies and things like that. So testing is going to help this young lady. And I actually don't know the age of the individual, but the reality is this is what's happening. People are gaining weight. So obesity in America, which already affects upwards of close to 40% of our population. And who's been at the helm? Who's been at the steering wheel of this ship we call the United States throughout the last 30 years? Oh, Dr. Fauci, our expert in health, has led the nation's health in the worst direction it's ever gone. And now, because of their lockdowns and shutdowns, which, here it is. Watch this. Go to the Lancet. Go to the Lancet. Country level analysis of COVID-19 policies. Full lockdowns, border closures, high rate of COVID-19 testing were not associated with reducing the number of critical cases or the mortality. So locking things down didn't help, didn't save lives. Actually, statistically speaking, they have now had multiple studies and evaluation of countrywide, county-wide analysis that shows that lockdowns, the greater the lockdown, the higher the number of people who die. And yes, they control for, well, that's because more people were dying is why they locked down more. No, they actually control for that. Folks, they made bad decisions because they don't understand the way our body works and what we should be. They don't even apply the things that science says we should be doing. Let me run you through some stuff real quick here. Watch this. I can go to vitamin A, infectious disease, and childhood mortality, a 2 solution. Actually, if you go to the other one, it's a 2-cent solution. It's kind of unique. I'll just give my 2 cents into this. Well, guess what their 2-cent solution of taking care of malnutrition in poorer countries especially could save 1 to 3 million children worldwide. Deaths annually could be prevented by taking care of malnutrition with 1 vitamin. But I am going to say this, I am talking about vitamin A, and let me go to the NIH here real quick. All right. Chronic intakes of excess vitamin A led to increased intracranial pressure, pseudotumor cerebri, dizziness, nausea, headaches, skin irritations, pain in the joints, bones, coma, and even death. You take vitamin A supplementation by itself chronically, you could actually die because of the vitamin. So don't do that. Eat healthy. Make sure you have a healthy gut. Don't just take isolated nutrients. Please, please, please. But again, all this information is freely available to us. Let me run you, watch this. So we could be affecting 1 to 3 million people. We could be reducing the mortality of measles by more than 50% by taking care of and supplementing 1 to 2 days with 200,000 IUs upon the child contracting measles, all right? Which would be a lot cheaper than all these because vaccines, if they worked, they could reduce your infectious illness death rate from 1 infection. But basically the way viruses work is even if you take a vaccine, and let's say that vaccine reduces your risk of measles or chicken pox, and you say, oh, look, we reduced measles. There's another virus that says, yay, measles is out of the way. Now I get to reign supreme and take lives. That's the way viruses work. Watch this. Watch. Let me show you something. This right here. Cut and splice this video for me, Anthony. This video right here, with anyone with common sense, should solve and end the pro-vaccine versus anti-vaccine debate. Let's just ask the question, are there more people alive because of vaccines? Ask that question. But then look at science and data to answer it. So here's the science and data. I want to ask you this one simple question. Parents, anybody who says vaccines are necessary. So if you believe that vaccines caused the decline, are you on me?
I'm on the ground.
Get on me real quick, just for a second. So if you believe that vaccines caused the decline, so this starts in 1900, this is the Journal of American Medical Association, all right? Infectious disease mortality trends in the United States from 1980 to 2014. So what caused that? Many people, if you just give them this graph and you ask them that question, their answer will be not what's in the immunology textbook, not what's in the Journal of Pediatrics. No, they will say the cause of that decline, I believe, was probably vaccines, wasn't it? And then let me ask you another question. For something to cause something else, to cause the decline, When does the implementation of that measure have to occur for it to be scientifically shown to be the cause of the decline? When does it have to occur? Could it occur after the decline for it to cause the decline? Folks, go on the graph real quick, Anthony. Watch this. The Journal of American Medical Association proves that vaccines are not saving lives. Folks, 1948, DTP vaccine. 1955, polio vaccine. 1963, measles vaccine. And I could go on and on and on because that was the first widespread vaccination campaign was in 1948 with the DTP vaccine when they started giving it to all children, recommending it for all children. So look at the disease mortality rate. After vaccinations, did it decline? Or did it stay the same? Well, according to the Journal of American Medical Association, the death rate from infectious diseases stayed the same since we began vaccinating. Before vaccines, we saw the rate of infectious disease deaths go down. So with science, I challenge anybody, show me how vaccines are saving lives. Done. That's all I gotta say. Done. Okay. Mic drop. I could take this off and throw it. I mean, it's just so sad that people, because this is what they say. This is how they say it. All right? This is what is said. You'll read articles, you'll hear doctors. Look at the number of people dying from infectious diseases before vaccines. Yeah, there was high rates of infectious disease death before vaccines. Look at the death rates after vaccines. But they never say, look at the decline of death before vaccines. They just say, yes, there was high death rate before vaccines. Yes, there is lower death rate after vaccines. But at the time of implementation of these vaccines, there was no continuous decline in infectious disease rates. In fact, the Journal of American Medical Association says infectious disease mortality rates have leveled off since 1950s, and infectious diseases are just surprising the heck out of us doctors. We are vaccinating more and more than ever before, and yet we just can't seem to reduce the infectious disease mortality rates. In fact, influenza infection death rates have gone up since we started vaccinating with the influenza vaccine on a nationwide scale. So it's just so sad because it's a truthful deception. They're using a question. Before vaccines, lots of people died. After vaccines, less people died. But it wasn't because of vaccines that less people are dying. But when you say, oh, it's easy to prove vaccines work because before vaccines, lots of people died. After vaccines, less people died. So therefore, vaccines work. That's an association. That's not a causation. Let's get back on track, folks. What else do I want to talk about? Talk about ventilators, everything like that. Give me any questions in the comments there on Facebook. So we can do health coaching. There are certain areas Wellness Way doctors have already set up shop. Get on the wellnessway.com. Somebody's asking about somebody in Connecticut. If you email my office, want to be seen in person, and you live in Connecticut, I will help you. My office staff will actually help you. I won't help you. I don't want to get credit for something I didn't do. Kind of like vaccines. I wouldn't be wanting to do what vaccines do and take credit for things that I don't do. So I'd actually have to say that my staff would be the ones that are going to help you try and find a Wellness Way clinic. But really it's easy. Go to wellnessway.com and search for, there's a search engine there that you can actually search for a Wellness Way clinic in your area. Please do that. I love for people to be seen in person by other Wellness Way docs. Dude, Tyler from Abu Dhabi. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I know. But if you need health coaching, I can do that over the phone. We can actually work with you because you can get any of the lab tests that we do. utilize clinically to help people and guide people. We teach individuals. And so I can help teach you about what you need to understand and knowledge you can gain from running labs, whether it be hormonal labs, whether it be cardiometabolic panels, whether it be immune panels. Again, right now for teachers, homeschool teachers, first responders, anybody, I'm still allowing for anybody that wants to get an immune panel, it would be $200. You have to go through my office alone. The Wellness Way puts it out as a $200 kit online. And that's all you'd pay there, but you can't come to me to ask for the test result read if you go through them. You have to come to my office specifically, then it's $200 and I will give you a free test result read, all right? So that's walking you through what the immune markers that they use through the Washington University use to measure the immune status of severe COVID or coronavirus infected patients. And they showed immunosuppressive states. So if we look at your immune system now and you're already weak or you have an imbalance in that immune response, those CD3, CD4, CD8, those are T helper cells, cytotoxic T cells, and I'm going to mention it, individuals who have repetitive influenza vaccines have reductions in their cytotoxic T cell responses, CD8 T cells. If you Google it, you'll find it really quickly. I know on thewilddoc.com, I've done videos in the past quite a few times about it, that CD8 T cell responses are reduced, and numbers are reduced in individuals and especially children who receive an annual flu vaccine. So it weakens their immune response. And coronavirus, COVID-19, your body needs cytotoxic T cells. It needs CD8 T cells to take care of this virus. We have been setting up our population with obesity, flu vaccines, malnutrition, bad advice, fearing of fevers, all kinds of things. The prevalence and not correcting underlying causes of autoimmune diseases. That's why our nation is dealing with COVID-19 mortality rates as high as they are. Because we have a sicker and sicker nation, depending on things that don't bring about a balanced immune response, a healthy immune response, but actually distort the immune response and give people a false sense of security that they're doing what's good for their body. And that's heartbreaking. So I rant all the time about this stuff. So it's a discount, it's a massive. You get actually the normal test results reads are normally $250 to $350 through Wellness Way Docs. Again, it's $200 for the panel and a free test result read through my office, all right? For those individuals, teachers, homeschool teachers, and first responders. Those people have to work because I want to lower that stress that they may have in fearing that they can't mount a healthy immune response. And if they're deficient or they have imbalances in those immune cells, well, then why don't we start giving our patients or giving individuals information that empowers them to start doing something about that and fixing the gaps that lead to those immune deficient states. So, Anthony, what else did I say? I think we went through vitamins. Oh, I was wanting to go through that. Here, watch this, folks. I mean, if we just touch on things. So I went to another link on PubMed, vitamin A supplementation implications for morbidity and mortality in children. And again, this one states that while vitamin A supplementation is effective in reducing total mortality and complications from measles infections, is likely more effective in populations suffering from nutritional deficiencies. Completely agree. They go through all that. Watch this. Effect. I'll click on another link that's provided related articles. Effects of vitamins. If somebody has the immune panel that we utilize is actually commonly used, and I'll oftentimes get a call from the health department asking, do you feel that this patient individual has AIDS, HIV? And I'll say no. But they have to call me because doctors, but if you look up the CD4, CD8 ratio, immune testing, you'll see that it's commonly used in HIV patients or a few other types of patients that are dealing with immunocompromised states. Epstein-Barr virus infections chronically can cause reductions in imbalances in that CD4, CD8 ratio. But they use it there, but it's applicable to cancer patients. Doing these tests with the CEA marker, which is a cancer marker, you can evaluate progression in improvements or treatment responses to cancer. You can also utilize it, and it's not an end-all, be-all, only thing you need to measure for cancer response rates. but it is a indicator and can be used to gather information. On top of that, though, when you look at natural killer cells that are necessary for the destruction of cancer cells, they're also the first-line defenders. They're your innate immune system. They respond first against viral and bacterial infections and things like that, more viral infections than cancers. You need those cells at strong numbers to be able to fight those illnesses off, and your natural killer cells responses are necessary to start their immune response, and then your adaptive immune response comes in second, your CD4, CD8 T cell responses. But watch this. Effects of vitamins, including vitamin A on HIV and AIDS patients. Wow. Vitamin A supplementation in HIV-infected pregnant women. However, periodic vitamin A supplementation in HIV-infected infants and children is beneficial in reducing all-cause mortality and morbidities, illness and all-cause. Not just if we're spending billions of dollars to try and create a vaccine. This is why the Journal of Pediatrics said what? Said what? Say what? How are we supposed to say that? Say what? Say what? It's more economically feasible. I know I'm yelling. It's more economically feasible than vaccines directed at specific organisms. So it would be more economically feasible to make sure people were eating correctly and not vitamin nutrition deficient than a vaccine. It would be more economically feasible to make sure people were eating healthy and not obese and not malnourished and not taking a bunch of blood pressure meds because nutrition plays into that big time that causes nutrient and zinc deficiencies and things like that. You see the issue? You see how they just get you in this medical merry-go-round that basically keeps you in more and more health crises. Oh, you developed high blood pressure. Let's not talk to you about what actually causes that. Let's go ahead and just put you on a medication that's going to lower your blood pressure, but not actually reduce your risk of stroke and heart attack, except for a minuscule amount. But it's actually going to put you at increased risk. The drug will, on top of the condition you already have, at an increased risk of dying of coronavirus, flu, pneumonia, all kinds of infectious diseases, because it's going to cause you to have mineral deficiencies like zinc deficiencies. So then when you come back to the hospital or to the doctor's offices more frequently with more infectious diseases and allergies and things like that, because zinc can actually, yes, increase your risk of allergies, allergic responses, your mucosal barrier isn't as strong. So they make more money on you as they don't treat the causes and don't educate you on underlying factors that cause the condition in the first place. But it's more economically feasible. We could be saving the lives and prolonging the lives of HIV-infected children, reducing all-cause mortality by making sure that we take care of at least one deficiency in vitamin A. But Fauci says vitamin C and D is the only ones that I take because that's the only ones that science says are beneficial to your immune system. He must have not have this is like click after click after click. You can find tons of articles on vitamin A. Vitamin A supplementation in children, morbidity from diarrhea, respiratory infections, and meta-analysis. High-dose vitamin A supplements are not recommended on a routine basis for preschool children and should be offered only to individuals or populations with vitamin A deficiency. But they can't measure vitamin A deficiency. So you have to clinically evaluate the lifestyle the person's living. In other factors like, because again, obese patients, if you're just tuning in, again, go back and watch the whole video. I've been talking about obesity, a 2020 study showing that vitamin A supplementation in obese mice, so it may be applicable to individuals with obesity, even though their blood tests say they're not deficient in vitamin A. So you can't just say, well, we'll test for it. In this situation, you actually have to guess for it. And that's not what the Wellness Way even likes to admit. And Patrick's admitted that multiple times. He said there are certain things that science does not have the capability to running a affordable test on you to be able to tell you whether you're deficient in certain vitamins or minerals or not. Unless you want to go ahead and get tissue biopsies. If you're like your liver, your lungs, your fat tissue, all those, and your blood, and then you might be able to get an assessment. But trust me, I'm not going to ever advise somebody to do that. I'm going to say, this is where you're at. This is the lifestyle you're living. Let's get the basics. Let's get the foundation down Start working on those things. And as we get the foundation improved, these factors, these vitamin nutrient deficiency factors, they're going to resolve. We don't need to measure all of them. It's great to have a vitamin D measurement. Vitamin D levels measured on blood tests actually give you a clinically significant accuracy that can help people in understanding whether they're wasting their money on not enough supplementation or too much supplementation. So there's a time and place for certain things that science is capable of testing appropriately. But again, like the PCR testing for coronavirus, they can't really tell you. Thousands and thousands of people have been told they have coronavirus, and they really didn't. Or they already did, and they've already fought it off. But they were locked down, and the lockdowns didn't work. Folks, it's just sad. It's just, it's just sad that Fauci will say C and D, those are the only things that are scientifically validated, but herbs and things like that contain vitamin C and D somehow are not. Yeah. Scientifically validated.